Today, I want to talk about Mary as disciple. The first disciple among those who followed Jesus historically, and those of us who continue to follow Jesus to this day. Before we can consider Mary's growth as a disciple of Jesus, we must keep in mind that Mary did not have a preconceived notion about how her son's life would unfold. She had no roadmap to follow. When we look closely at her encounters with Jesus during his public ministry, at the wedding at Cana and at the cross, we are able to identify the joys and challenges she met in her development as a disciple. The self-giving demanded of her when she chose to stand by her son. So let us look to the book of John at the wedding at Cana. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and me? My hour has not yet come." And his mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." And they took it. And when the steward tasted the water that had become wine, and not knowing where it came from, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Many Bible commentaries point out the connection between this narrative and the Eucharist. But it is also important to read this story within the social and cultural climate of Mary's society. In Mediterranean society, relationships were based on reciprocity, kinship ties, honor and shame. And even in adulthood, a son was expected to obey his mother. In this context, then, Jesus' abrupt response to his mother is truly surprising. We see Mary moving into a new relationship with her son to be shaped by his ministry and within community. In community with Jesus, Mary's understanding of family also broadens to include all whom Jesus has gathered around him. Class structures have broken down. As our neighborhoods become more and more multicultural, Mary's presence in the community in Capernaum leads us to ponder how hospitality plays out in our lives today. Like everyone else, she had to learn how to embrace her son's teaching, to learn to hear the word of God from his lips. Over the course of time, Mary would learn that identifying with her son meant identifying with all humankind. In listening to and observing him, she is gradually led to the awareness that being his disciple would connect her more and more with his mission of establishing God's covenant of justice and righteousness for all. We are asked to do no less today. Indeed, the evolution of Mary's growth as a disciple of Jesus echoes the self-denial and the taking up of one's cross that Jesus requires of all his disciples. Her presence at the cross, noted in John's Gospel, and Luke's naming her among the disciples gathered in prayer in the upper room and at Pentecost, are strong indicators of her perseverance and willingness to stay for the long haul.